Hi, guys. Good morning. My name is Nina Means. I'm the director for Austin Community College Fashion Incubator, and you're here for Coffee Talk. This is something we've started doing during the pandemic, really to kind of keep the conversation going. We really want to talk with you, want to hear about what's going on in your world. So if you want to drop a quick note in the chat, this is a really great opportunity for us to answer some of your questions. I do typically come with kind of a topic just so that we've got something to talk around for the 30 minutes. But feel free if there's things that you want to discuss that have some additional, you're concerned about or things you're thinking about kind of during this time, definitely let me know. I'd love to answer your questions. One of the things that I wanted to get a chance to focus on today is what makes a great collaboration. And I think that a lot of times, because of the climate that we're in, we're really focused on, need-based areas of opportunity and growth that are not happening as rapidly in certain communities and certain parts of the business that it could be. We see small business and women-owned business and Black-owned businesses that are disproportionately not experiencing the same level of startup capital or resources or real estate opportunities as some of their counterparts. And so a lot of times, a lot of these businesses are left to fend for themselves, or they are needing heavy investment capital that sometimes has them compromising early on in their business. And so what we want to talk about today is a bit more about strategic collaborations and partnerships. I've also added some additional links in the description of today's talk, just on where to find diversity in businesses, where to find more Black-owned businesses, as well as where to get more resources for women-owned businesses. One of the really incredible things about being in the state of Texas is that, we have been at the top of the, really the game in terms of entrepreneurship in the country. It's really a wonderful place for people to create entrepreneurship endeavors, and it's a really great place for women to do it as well. But still, in those spaces, we see a lot of lack in terms of how people are able to go to market, the capital that's available for them, and otherwise. And so, how do we, advise or even take on, addressing some of these issues that we see across the board? It's not just for the state of Texas, but really, the country and, globally as well. There are a lot of businesses that need support, not just in finances, but in mentorship, in guidance, and, how to, go after seed funding or Series A, Series B funding. What does that mean? What does that look like? What are investors looking for? There are some, really great organizations and companies that are helping to do that. Texas has a vibrant accelerator and incubator network that we're a part of as a fashion incubator. The Austin Chamber of Commerce has brought us together as, really thought leaders in this space. And so we get a chance to work with other leaders of accelerators and incubators to hear about what it is that they're doing, how it is that they're navigating businesses during times like this, and then how do they create meaningful engagements going forward. So this is something that we really feel strongly about. I'm going to talk primarily about small business, women-owned business, minority-owned business. However, a lot of these tips and skills are really for a variety of different, backgrounds. So don't feel left out of these conversations because of the climate that we're in. I think that a lot of these, opportunities have been available and will continue to be available for all kinds of backgrounds. However, it's a similar, cadence where we're saying, what, all the houses are great, but there's only a few that are on fire. So that's where the fire department goes. So, please note that it's not that we are only targeting minority-owned businesses or women-owned businesses, but we're looking at, how we're creating meaningful engagement for small business as a whole. And we're really focused on fashion. So where do we find those collaborations? Where do we find those meaningful engagements? So one of the things that we are trying to do here is really, address a few different areas. So I actually made a few notes for you guys. Just a few minutes into this. So one of the things that, For a lot of us, when we're looking at creating meaningful partnerships and alignment, a lot of times it's really about getting people to support not just the business model, but the founder itself, And so sometimes it's really looking at, investing in people that you believe are going to take it all the way through to the end zone, making a little football reference there. But I think that it's really about how are you aligning behind um, the person, the people behind the project, behind the business, just as much as it is about the business and the business model. A dear friend of mine that you guys will get a chance to hear from later this week, always talks about how product is king, and it is. But I think the founder is queen. So they really go hand in hand. An amazing product, an amazing founder, and then being able to connect with those who understand what it is that you're doing. And I think that that's really been the biggest barrier for collaborations in the investment space, right? Because a lot of times people invest in what they're familiar with. And so it's a comfort level about where their money goes and how it gets spent. Austin is traditionally, well, it's become traditionally a tech town, and so a lot of our investments are centered around technology, and that's typically where we feel comfortable. But whenever we get into, product and CPG and other things, those areas are growing rapidly, but a lot of them are anchored in tech integrations that help people feel more comfortable with the investment, or they can see what their return on the investment could potentially be. And so I think that, when you're working in the product space, specifically in fashion, there's a very different model that's typically been in place there. And so, connecting as a founder, connecting as a business, can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. But, what we want to do is kind of, open up, well, maybe it's not always about connecting, with an investor. Maybe it's partnering with a retailer, and creating a meaningful engagement. So the example that I have about that is about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago now, we interviewed Patty Hoffpower from the Garden Room. And, one of the things that I've seen with local retailers and specialty stores is that they're really able to pivot much stronger in a market like this. And so small brands that have a really potent project, a really great story and a meaningful founder, who's really engaged in the product, I believe have a really great opportunity here to be able to supply stores with things that they really need at a moment's notice. And so one of the things that I've noticed with Patty's store was that she was able to work with small businesses that were supplying different kinds of face masks at different face coverings at different price points. A lot of times people have been trying to, solve for one particular price point, typically around that like $10 range. But there's some specialty stores who are looking for product that's actually a little bit more elevated. And so, yes, it's doing a similar thing, but they're looking for a product for their customer who's used to buying a certain kind of garment. And so that's really key. It's key for us to really look at, what are the opportunities to, work with another store to be able to deliver a product. Maybe it's helping them create a private label. Maybe this is a collaboration that can happen with specialty stores in your area who's saying, I want to meet this need. I don't necessarily have the resources to do that. But if I partner with the designer or I partner with the business, I may be able to solve that problem with my customer kind of on my own terms or on a term that I can do alongside of another small business. So we're trying to give you guys other options about, not just selling on your own, but really leveraging, customer bases through other outlets, and this is typically what would happen if you were selling your own brand anyway, right? You would, eventually make inroads into a space that you'd be able to sell your product. Ideally, and then you would be able to continue to sell your product through that store collection after collection, provided that it did well. Now, what you're doing here is actually looking to solve a problem that a retailer is having regarding face coverings specifically, or regarding face coverings at a price point or a detail that's unique to the way that it's being solved currently. Now, these collaborations would now kind of become a different opportunity, saying, okay, is this a collaboration for private label, where it's really about the background and, or is this a collaboration for brand alignment? And, a lot of these things are, there's a few different things here. So one is, the money, you know, engaging for private label, just really just kind of says, you know what, we're going to work in the background on this particular project, but it's an opportunity for us to be able to continue to improve our cash flow. If it's for reach, you may say, okay, well, we don't want to be an invisible partner, in this collaboration with you to be able to bring this product. It's really about us being able to be more visible, more transparent, and then you can kind of show a bit more about where the product is coming from as a part of your sustainability, a part of your corporate social responsibility, a part of your engagement with small business, minority owned business, women owned business. And a lot of people, especially in this climate, are understanding how valuable that is. I think that this is really, an opportunity to say, there have been times when for women-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses, that has not been a strong suit or a strength in the eyes of places that you may have been selling to in the past. However, now there may be some shift and some understanding about the value that's being brought to the table. They're actually for a vote in the direction of people realizing the value of minority and women-owned businesses in the past. Back in 2014, there was an article that talked about, how much more businesses were seeing added to their bottom line by engaging women-owned businesses in the past, and how much more their businesses had grown by engaging them at higher levels within the organization. So it's not that everyone's, just now seeing it today. However, the focus is much more apparent, especially as we're sitting at home, especially as we are in a much, more, I think, still moment to be able to take in the things that we're seeing. That's really been something that I think has been unique to this time, where we've been uniquely focused on, race relations. It's not that it's anything new, but we are all sitting still and we are all seeing it much more clearly than we ever have before. It's not that we're confused about, women's role in all of that, experience, or, what Black women have experienced, or, women of all colors have experienced. We are seeing a lot more focus on, what's possible. So, I think that, this is a difficult time for us, I think, for a lot of different reasons, but I think it's also presenting an incredible opportunity to do things differently. So, there may be times when the collaborations are really existing primarily for reach. This is another, I want to kind of talk a little bit more about that in terms of reach in a different way later. And that's really about audience. I'm going to actually pull that up because it seems to go better here. So, the reach may be just, getting in the store and being visible and having that connection, but really that's about audience, right? The audience is really, especially for larger stores that are looking for meaningful engagements, whenever you were working with a small business, you're really looking for not just the number of engagements, but how potent those engagements are, and how powerful those engagements are, and how consistent those engagements are. And so even if you're a small brand, you really don't need to fret over the numbers as much as you need to be concerned about the quality of the engagement. And what does that engagement yield? And so being able to quantify the value, of what's happening in your space over the quantity. So we're really looking at quality of the engagement over the quantity of the engagement. And I think that a lot of that happens, in terms of making that great collaboration, where businesses that have typically not been able to crack the code on your niche, that's really where your superpower is. And so for small businesses, it's really important to demonstrate how you crack the code on your culture, on your audience, on your product. All of those are really important metrics to start to gather if you haven't gathered those already, but to be able to share that in terms of an opportunity, in collaboration of how they're working. You know, people do this all the time. They've done it in terms of ambassador programs. They do it in terms of you know, Target does collaborations with a variety of different businesses. Right now, they have 3 minority-owned women businesses in their women's collection now for collaboration. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. The Cushiony brand is my personal favorite, but there are several others that are, you know, also very, very beautiful. But Target has already seen the value of doing this, and they've done it, you know, with small business, but they're really branching out into women-owned and into a minority women-owned businesses. And so, you know, we applaud brands that are trying to make a difference and activate these kinds of projects. These things were kind of already in the works, from what I understand, prior to, you know, our focus shifting onto it now. But these are things that, you know, smaller brands, you know, Cushiony is definitely a very well-established, well-loved brand. She is not a tiny business, but I think she still qualifies as being relatively small, especially in comparison to a Target. But I think that whenever you look at these opportunities, you know, it may not be a collaboration with Target if this is your first time doing collaboration. It may be, you know, a well-known local retailer that's looking to make some additional engagements. Maybe it's, you know, another brand that's similar but different from yours, you know, that has a need to diversify, you know, their audience, and that the two of you can come together on something that speaks powerfully. One of the latest campaigns that I actually really love for reach and audience is Share the Mic. And Share the Mic was developed by Bozoma St. John, and she has done incredible work with all kinds of people through her entire career. But the Share the Mic campaign during this time, where Black women and white women are swapping their conversation and talking to each other's audience and giving, you know, an opportunity to speak directly with an audience that you typically wouldn't be able to see. Those are collaborations that really go a long ways. So much so that I saw that Austin has their own edition of Share the Mic locally. And so it's very exciting to see that it's taking off in other markets. And I can't wait to check that out. So make sure, if you haven't seen it, check out on Instagram the hashtag Share the Mic. And if you want to check out the Austin local version of hashtag Share the Mic ATX, that's another place to kind of see this kind of reach and audience collaboration in action. And so it may give you some ideas about how you might want to do that for your own business. The other things that we kind of get out of collaborations are a lot of these intangibles, you know. And so what do I mean by intangibles? Sometimes whenever we're looking at creating meaningful collaborations, or, you know, what really makes a great collaboration is really looking at what are your particular skills that are not necessarily things that you'd write down on your resume. And what are some of the particular skills as you're getting to know some of these other brands and businesses that may not be readily accessible on the surface. You know, sometimes it takes a bit of more energy to be able to really mine and cultivate relationships with businesses that would be great collaborations for you in the future. And so one of the things that, you know, I encourage people to do is to, you know, get on the phone, do a Zoom call, you know, and not just one, several, you know, many, and really use your gut in terms of, you know, getting to know people, getting to know their business, how they're, you know, ask a lot of questions. It's really easy to get into a collaboration and just want to talk about how awesome your brand is and how awesome your work is and what you can do for other people, to convince them that that you should be collaborating with them. But you may not have done the due diligence on the other side to really understand, you know, does my brand really fit here? And a lot of that has to do with listening and asking really good questions. We can have a separate talk on what good questions would be, you know, ideal in this space. But what I would encourage you to do as a small business is that, you know, every large brand, every business isn't necessarily good for your business. And that may be a difficult one to swallow because you're like, but it's so, it's this particular label. I've always wanted to do work with them, or it's this particular company. I've always wanted to do work with them. This is really where it's going to take a bit more of a critical eye, to make sure that the alignments make sense, that your audience doesn't get confused by the alignment that you've so diligently been working on. And so, I remember working for a brand, it's probably almost 10 years ago now. And, I was working with this brand, and it was in the age of kind of this moody, angsty design. It was, Rick Owens, that styling, really dark and architectural. Margiela was, really prominent, at the moment, Heider Ackerman, and there was some other folks, Anne de Meulemeester. So there were some really, like, the Belgian designers were really rocking it out, and they're still amazing. But really, like, this, like, deep, dark kind of branding, and I just remember there being a brand that wasn't really known for that, but was observing the trend, and, and kind of hopped into the boat of, this dark, angsty, edgy design, and their customer flipped out. Their customer completely lost it. They did not understand what it was that she was trying to do, and it completely turned her business upside down in a single season. And so that's kind of an example of kind of changing the product. But, but the collaborations that would come out of something like that, I think she was probably observing some of the collaborations that were happening with these brands and the placement that they were getting, and wanted to take part in that. But in that, she lost a bit of her identity. And so I think that that's really key for you guys to kind of think about, is like, what's my identity in the space of collaboration? And does this dilute my identity, or does it enhance my identity? It's really those intangibles that are sometimes not laying on the surface that may be a bit more of, understanding a bit deeper about their customer psychographic. And if they would be standing in the same room with your customer, would they have coffee? Would they talk? Would they be friends? And I think it's not always just about expanding the market into unusual places. It's about placing your market in strategic places that make sense for expansion and growth. That's why we collaborate. We collaborate for expansion. We collaborate for growth. And so whenever we see opportunities, we have to be a bit more circumspect about the intangibles that go along with the collaboration. It's not just the money. It's not just the reach. It's not just the resources. It's also these moments that can inadvertently sacrifice business without having a clear understanding about why the collaboration is taking place. Now, there's some collaborations that are, it works and it's good, but, there are others where it's like, hey, you know what? My customer typically gets this kind of product from me at this price point, but now they can go and buy it at Target. That may or may not serve you well. It may provide some additional accessibility and more brand awareness, but it may not serve your existing customer. So, just understanding what you gain and what you may give up for that. Now, anyone who's looking at Target says, but they have a ton of doors, meaning there's a ton of stores where people interact with them. They have a vibrant online business. It's not excessively promotional, which means it's not always going on sale. It's not on sale the moment it goes onto the website. There's some things there that, may make that, okay, beneficial. It's a higher end value store. So people respect it and people shop it from a variety of different backgrounds. So the exposure could be really great, where people may not have been originally aware of the product before. So, it can do great things for your business in a well thought out, calculated, way, or it could, bring your business down. It just depends on where it is that you are in the market. And I think that that's something to consider. H&M has done these collaborations as well. And so looking at how that affects the business beyond the collaboration is really important. I would have to say that post the Margiela, collaboration with H&M, I'm not sure what effect that had on his business, but I haven't seen as much coming out of his world, as much recently. But I think that like that's something to kind of consider. It's like where does all of that fit in into the storyline? But I do think that there's a lot of value in creating collaborations that help accelerate your business, help get you into unusual spaces. And then I think I kind of touched on this, but I didn't really drill into it, was on the resources. Whenever we look at resources, this is really something where, those collaborations are not just for, money and sales, which is, yes, you need to be making money and you need to be making sales as a result of a collaboration. However, there's additional resources that are available that could help to accelerate your business. And so if there are things that, certain brands are doing or certain businesses are doing, and you need some assistance in making that happen with your brand or your business, it's an opportunity for you to write in to these collaborative partnership agreements. These definitely should be worked out on paper and not just a handshake. Okay. You would need to be clear about what your exchange really is. There are resources that they see in working with you, and there's resources that you can find in working with them. And this is really going to take some acute self-awareness about what you are good at. You won't be good at everything. Your business won't be good at everything. A lot of times for small businesses, their weaknesses kind of mirror the founder's weaknesses, unless that founder has done a really great job of building a team that counteracts and rebalances what those weaknesses can be. And then they're able to actually execute at a higher level because they've done that. Now, I would also say that your collaborations or your strategic partners should also do the same thing, even in a limited, scope. So whenever you're looking at creating these collaborations and the resources, is it that they have access to other capital opportunities? If you do this well, will they make another introduction for you? Is there another opportunity for you to scale the collaboration? Is there, what resources do they have in terms of personnel to help push the collaboration forward? These things are all resources that you may want to consider, that you want to be able to get additional support on. Maybe it's, leveraging their marketing as opposed to you carrying the load of marketing the collaboration, or maybe it's sharing intellectual property or collateral that's created. These are things that you really want to kind of look at in terms of resources. Does their branding and their layout match the kind of look and feel that your brand also wants to create, or are they complementary? That's also a great way to look at it as well. Whenever Supreme did the collaboration with Louis Vuitton, it clearly has a different market, clearly has a different spin and angle. However, whenever you look at the Supreme Louis Vuitton collaboration, they really were able to bring those two brands together in a way that spoke very clearly to both audiences and kind of opened up Louis Vuitton to a different customer that may have not, seen them in that way. And Louis Vuitton, is a customer as well. It's like, this is a really interesting, collaboration that's opening up some additional resources in terms of audience and reach. But they're also looking at some various intangibles in terms of the nuances of the psychology of the audience as well. And, a lot of that has to do with, going through the due diligence and understanding what it takes to connect authentically. So, I wanted to kind of put these things in front of you guys in terms of what goes into a great collaboration, and some things that you'll really want to consider when building collaborations, in terms of seeking out collaborations and initiating, that's a completely different conversation, and something that, if you're interested in finding out more about, definitely send us a note. We can answer your emails, or you can send us a chat, drop something in the chat and we can answer that more specifically, or point you in the direction of how to get that started. Sometimes whenever we look at these collaborations, size may not matter as much as you may think it does. It's really about getting that, I would say, potent engagement, where it's really engaged with your customer in an authentic way, where people can really see that you're making a difference. Audiences that love their content and value, that speak that language, those collaborations really go far. And so understanding who you are in that space, what you bring to the table, being able to quantify your metrics in terms of the depth of your engagement, not just the quantity of it. And then being able to understand what resources you bring to the table, and how your audience and your reach may be the niche that another person is looking for, and being able to present that in a way that really makes sense. I think that we have so many opportunities to coach on this, and so if you're interested in that, send us an email. Our email is fashion.incubator@austincc.edu. We also, you can follow us on our social media handles at ACC Fashion Incubator. And if you just want to keep up with where we are, check us out on Austin Community College's website, just backslash ACC Fashion Incubator there as well. So we try to keep it consistent. We try to make it easy for you to find us. And yeah, this is a really great way for us to keep up with you guys. And, if you haven't filled out that survey, send us a quick note. A lot of you have filled it out already, and a lot of you have already signed up for the focus group. Thank you so much for participating in that with us. And we will definitely look forward to giving you more content that helps to answer some of your questions about how we're moving forward during these uncertain times. I'll be back here on Wednesday for Workshop Wednesday to talk more about technical design and the technical package. And then on Friday, we'll be here with my personal business mentor. His name is Ed Jones. And we are going to be talking about some really exciting things that are happening in the industry and really where Ed sees things going forward. I don't want to give too much away, but we're really excited about what's coming up. So join us on Friday for ACCFI Presents. Again, my name is Nina Means. I'm the director for Austin Community College Fashion Incubator, and we'll see you guys next time.